Let me just, on behalf of the board, just express as well that the board is really taking that step, which is unusual, just to be courteous to all of our visitors tonight and allow them an opportunity to speak if some of those folks that have other commitments or times they have to go, then that's out of respect for that. So thank you to the board.
New textbook adoption, Commissioner.
Good evening. Good evening, President Costa, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Cunningham. The superintendent is recommending that the board approve the Report IIs related to new textbook adoptions for history, social science, grades K through 11. Following our April 9th board meeting, we met with representatives from several groups to hear concerns and provide additional information and answer questions. Our goal throughout the process has been to continue to have open dialogue with both our staff and our community. With board approval, we will work to create smooth rollouts for these new materials in order to support students, teachers, and the community. President Costa, we are available to answer any questions that you may have regarding the social science Report IIs.
And before the board asks questions, I think we'll go to visitor comment. And with that, here are the other instructions. In order to accommodate as many speakers as possible, I'll be calling 4 names at a time and ask you to line up in the center, for the center aisle. After the speaker has ended his or her remarks, the next person should proceed directly to the podium and introduce him or herself and begin the remarks. At the conclusion of the 4th person's remarks, I will call another 4 names. Respect is a core belief in the San Juan District. We ask you to show respect for differing viewpoints by listening and not vocalizing during another speaker's time. I will make the other comment that I made at the last board meeting, which people just forget. So I will say it again. We would really like to hear from as many speakers as possible. And applause really takes up time that speakers can be utilizing. So please hold the applause. It will really allow us to hear more speakers. And with that, the first 4 speakers are Rick Wortman, Katie Gall, Kaya Gall, Rick Gall, Kayla Gall, I'm sorry. And you can start.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, Ms. Cunningham. My name is Rick Wortman. I'd like to preface my remarks by stating, first of all, that I am a Christian. I am not a bigot. I'm not a hater. And I deeply, deeply am offended by those who would suggest otherwise. Once more, I rise in opposition to approval of this curriculum and these textbooks. This board has consistently discounted, marginalized, disenfranchised concerned parents. You have failed to practically seek out, transparently inform, and actively engage your constituent parents who are concerned about sensitive and controversial curriculum changes. You have failed to provide adequate, open, and available physical and online access for parents to review all curriculum materials. You have failed to actively and objectively listen to constituent parent concerns. You have failed to maintain civility and decorum in board meetings free from activist disruptions, tacitly tolerating activist disruption and permitting ad hominem attacks against concerned parents. You have failed to heed concerned parents' pleas for inclusion in the process. You are embarking on a course of indoctrination, not education, by embracing a radical activist agenda, by promoting sectarianism and promulgating an ideology of tribalism focused on sexual identity, by introducing sensitive and controversial concepts of gender fluidity at inappropriate age levels, thereby usurping parental rights to introduce and discuss gay ideology with their own children, and by conscripting children into the culture war over sexuality. You should be ashamed. I give this board an F. Can you spell recall? Stop this train wreck. Stay after school and partner collaboratively with concerned parents to develop a mutually acceptable and compliant curriculum. Thank you very much.
words. I would like to ask help from the audience for my 2 minutes. Please stand and remain standing if you believe in the following: that the First Amendment protects our freedom and speech, and by extension, freedom of thought. Please remain standing for parent rights, parent involvement in curriculum and education. Please remain standing if you believe in transparency in curriculum and development. Now, please remain standing if you agree with the use of social studies to sexualize pre-sexual children. Because by introducing sexual orientation, you're doing exactly that. Thank you for your help, audience. Board, we the people continue to oppose tradition indoctrination, and we oppose the California state religion of secular humanism. The courts will decide if this mandated education is constitutional, so let them do their job. And you do yours. Serve the public. Parents are the ultimate responsible party for their children, not the state, not the activists. So listen to us and give us a voice, that we can inform you what sort of education our children need. Please postpone the implementation of this curriculum until we can find a reasonable middle ground to satisfy SB 48 in the meantime. Thank you.
Good evening, board, and thank you for having me. My name is Kayla Ball, and we are both 7th graders at Andrew Carnegie. When I heard about what's in the new textbooks, I was shocked and couldn't understand why we absolutely needed to know about the private lives of historical figures. So I decided to do my own research. I found that Sally Ride was the first American woman in space, and she's worth looking up to for her accomplishments as an astronaut. But did you know that when she went to space, she was married to Stephen Hawley, a male? I also discovered that she was having an affair for 2 years with her female partner during her marriage. Is that mentioned in the new textbooks? If not, then why even mention anything about her personal life at all? Was she an amazing astronaut because she was lesbian, cheated on her husband, or is it because she was brilliant and hardworking? Her great mind and hard work is the only part of her life I want to celebrate. Furthermore, is Ellen DeGeneres successful because she's lesbian or because she's hilarious? Ellen was a successful actress and comedian before coming out as a lesbian. Then, I looked up Harvey Milk. Should Harvey Milk be celebrated for having an illegal affair with underage boys, making him a pedophile? No, absolutely not. We have been doing fine learning about important historical figures for their accomplishments in history, not in the bedroom. I think we should stick to the basic facts about how these people contributed to society. Please don't force me to learn details that distract students from the contributions and accomplishments of these historical figures. Thank you.
Paula, 2 weeks ago, you singled me out, as well as another speaker, and commented on what I had to say. You said tolerance is too low a bar and that we should aim for acceptance. Since I'm sure no one in your position would be a hypocrite, you must be practicing acceptance yourself first. And since you now accept me and my views, you'll vote no. Or you can vote yes and show us how hypocritical you are. Now, anyone willing to think can see that mutually exclusive opposing views cannot accept one another, but they can tolerate each other. Clearly, what you want isn't equality and tolerance, it's hegemony, the dominance of your group over mine. We, on the other hand, want equal rights and respectful tolerance. Also 2 weeks ago, one proponent from the mic openly told us to get out of the state if we don't agree. Now that is intolerance. I have never told anyone to leave the state of their birth simply because they disagree with me. So to your shame, I will now show you how we tolerate. I stand with the LGBT community and affirm your right to live your lifestyle, even though I don't personally agree with it. Will anyone, even if they disagree with my faith, stand with my family and I and affirm our right to the First Amendment? Will anyone stand with the Slavic families that fled the USSR for religious freedom like our forefathers? Yes. Thank you. No one from the opposition has said they will tolerate or affirm us. So know this, you are now the intolerant ones. And you now have control over socially, I'd say anyway. And with this newfound power, the first thing you have done is trample on the rights of people like me who are doing you no harm. True colors.
Joanna Duenas, Yulia Ivashkovich, and Emily Vaden.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first name.
Brooklyn Shepherd.
Hello, members of the board. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry, what? Did someone say, sorry, I hear voices. I am really troubled at what curriculum is being presented or is supposed to be presented to our children. My husband and I, we love our kids' school. Golden Valley Charter School, woo, love it. But we will pull our kids. We will. We're prepared to. If, it's our job as parents to teach our children certain values. I love my gay friends. I love them. I do. I love them. But it is my job to teach my children certain things. Not the teachers. And if you're a teacher, I applaud you for being a teacher. It's a hard job. But reading, writing, arithmetic, please teach my child. Teach my child, please. I love my children, but I do want you to teach them that. Please. There's just no reason for it. There's no reason to bring this into the curriculum at all. Really think about it. And I believe that you all have some sort of power. That's why we're here in front of you. There's no reason for it. Okay? We all just need to teach our children to love. That's one thing I do love about Golden Valley is they do teach some values that not these other ones.
Good evening, board, and thank you for listening to our comments. My name is Joanna. Hi, everybody. I was not here for the last time there were public comments, but I did hear some of the things that were said. What I'm hearing in the hallway and while we're waiting to speak are things that talk about why the need, what I'm hearing about including a homosexual agenda or something to that effect. There's a heteronormity that is being taught in schools without it being explicitly said. When we're talking about someone's husband or wife, their orientation is discussed without it being overt. This would be the same sort of thing in my mind. But what it makes me realize, and what I hope that the people in this room realize, is that we are more alike than we are different. And Maya Angelou has a wonderful poem, which I don't have enough time to read the entire thing, called The Human Family. And she talks about that the last two phrases are, I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. I worked as an advocate for youth that were in foster care, and many of them attended San Juan Unified School District schools, from ages ranging from kindergarten all the way through, older than 18, finishing up their education. And what kids told me, and another thing going back to what Maya Angelou would say, people don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. When you have inclusive curriculum the kids hear it, the kids feel it, and that can only benefit them. Thank you.
I'm sorry, we will not, as I said earlier, our core belief is respect. Bullying is not acceptable in this room. Thank you.
Good evening, President Costa, members of the board, Superintendent Kern, and Ms. Kaina. My name is Yulia, and I would like to represent post-Soviet Union community, often generalized as Russians. However, there were 15 nationalities under the realm of Soviet Union. And we immigrated from ideologically oppressive regime, totalitarian regime. And we know firsthand what does it mean when your freedom is restricted and when all of your opinions are oppressed. And we had always seen United States as a flagman of democracy and freedom. And now we find ourselves in a position where our fundamental right of a parent is trampled. We were not given fair opportunity to be in this process of adopting such a critical change to the curriculum. The first and the only notification that we received, my family, was just invitation to an informational night hosted by San Juan School District in February 2019. And that's when everything was decided already. When it comes to morality, privacy, age appropriateness, please leave it to us, parents, to decide when it is more appropriate to introduce those sensitive topics. Children mature at different pace, and only parents can know what that pace is. California School Board Association identifies the role of school boards as to ensure that school districts are sensitive to beliefs, values, and priorities of their community. Based on this, we again urge you to please postpone this vote and open the room for dialogue for us so we can find the common grounds. It is in your power right now to unite this community rather than divide it even more than they are now. Thank you for listening.
Hello, my name is Emily Baden. We recently moved to the district, and my son will be starting kindergarten in August. He is transgender. The more I learned about what it meant to be a part of the LGBTQ community, it became extremely clear to me that his experience at school will unfortunately be very different from the rest of his peers. But it doesn't have to be, and that's why I'm here. 2 weeks ago, I shared data from the National School Climate Survey, which examines the experience of LGBTQ youth across the nation, and I want to share more of that data tonight. In the 2017 survey, 55% of LGBTQ students who were victimized in school said they did not report the incident to school staff because they believed it would not be appropriately handled or that reporting it would further their harassment. 60% of the students who did report it said that school staff did nothing or told the student to ignore it. LGBTQ students who experienced higher levels of victimization and discrimination were 3 times more likely to miss school in the last month. They were twice as likely to report they did not plan to pursue post-secondary education, and they were also more likely to have low self-esteem and higher rates of depression. Harassment in schools has long-lasting effects on students. It is psychologically damaging, impairs their ability to develop healthy relationships, and be engaged in the school environment, and it changes who they see themselves becoming. For transgender students especially, this discrimination can be deadly. According to the 2015 U.S. transgender students, 40% of respondents have attempted suicide in their lifetime, a rate 9 times higher than the general population. There is a relationship here with educational attainment. Those who don't complete high school have the highest rate at 52% compared to those at 30% who complete a bachelor's degree. Please vote to adopt the state-mandated curriculum. Our students, my son, deserve schools free from discrimination.
The next 4 speakers, Shannon Brown, Irina Zanganov, Linda Simwin, and Jeff Edwards. And then the next set of 4, I am going to start reading the names before the 4th person starts speaking.
Board members, Superintendent Kern and Ms. Cunningham. I'm still Shannon Brown, parents of 2 boys in San Juan. I know this has not been easy for you as board members, nor has it been for district staff. We appreciate your patience. So folks continue to make claims that we don't need to mention a person's sexuality, and that doing so is a violation of their rights. So I have 3 points to make. Invisibility of privilege, rights, and coded discrimination. Our society assumes you are straight unless one visually or verbally cues people in. Not stating sexuality by default leads people to believe you are straight. So by not including someone's sexuality as part of the curriculum, it makes it invisible. It sends a message to our LGBTQ students and families that they are not seen or valued. My second and third points will build on each other, so let's start with rights. Freedom of religion, the right to practice whatever religion you choose. This also protects people from not having other people's religious beliefs forced upon them. Freedom of speech, the right to express opinions without censorship or restraint. By the fact that we are all here tonight expressing our opinions and parents can say what they want to children shows that that freedom is intact. So let's talk about civil rights. The rights of all citizens for political, social freedom, and equality. This would extend to all groups being recognized in our curriculum. In the context of civil rights, discrimination refers to unfair or unequal treatment of an individual or group based on certain characteristics. Singling out the LGBT community to be excluded from this curriculum is an act of discrimination in and among itself. So when comments wrap up and you vote on this adoption, I would ask you to keep in mind a couple of shared beliefs that are part of the district's strategic plan. Every person is unique and has equal worth. Diversity is a valuable asset that strengthens and enriches our community.
Board, my name is Irina Zdana. Every child is developing at its own pace. And I think it's not necessary to show them different sexual orientations. To kids who are in elementary school, I want to have my rights as a parent to bring up my child and not to be afraid of what kind of agenda should and would be pushed on him or her in school. I ask you not to adopt this curriculum, and I truly believe that democracy is still working in this country.
My name is Linda Simonian. First of all, I want to express my utmost respect for every parent who came here on both sides. I love you and I respect the First Amendment and our freedom of speech and voicing our opinion. I did not have that freedom when I lived in the country of my birth. 3 decades ago, I came to America as a refugee, escaping an oppressive ideology that was unapologetically pushed on me throughout my childhood and throughout entire school. I was ridiculed, I was beaten, I was abused, and I know firsthand how it feels like it. What is happening here with pushing this ideology on our kids, it's taking me personally back to the days of KGB interrogations and when they ruled supremely. It is a clear violation of my parental rights and constitutional freedom, where minority is ruling majority. When we send our kids to school, we expect them to learn math, English, history, and science, not to be indoctrinated with the age-inappropriate materials. Yes. I'm a dean in a medical school here in California. When I got hold of the textbooks and showed them to my doctors, they were absolutely abhorred. And by their definition, they defined that as a child abuse. I implore the board not to adopt this agenda. Thank you for listening.
Before you begin, following Mr. Edwards will be Cindy Otero, Chelsea Erickson, Michelle Thomas.
Hello, my name is Jeff Edwards. I'm here on behalf of the Stone Stonewall Foundation in Greater Sacramento, the charitable arm of the Stonewall Democratic Club. The Stonewall Foundation's purpose is to promote gay-straight alliances in Sacramento area schools, to support emerging leaders in the LGBT community with scholarships in Sac State, and to ensure compliance with the FAIR Act. You've heard and will hear voices in this room telling you that this curriculum should be delayed, and that the time isn't right to acknowledge the existence of and contributions of LGBT people. But according to the Pew Research Center, the average age at which a gay person first realizes they're gay, the median age in this country, is 10 years old. The LGBT children in this district deserve to be treated with respect, with a fair, accurate, and inclusive curriculum. Thank you.
Good evening, School Board, President Costa, Superintendent Kern. Ms. Cunningham, thank you. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I didn't plan to speak tonight, but I'm very impassioned about this topic. I'm speaking on behalf of my students who are marginalized and invisible. I've been teaching history for about 30 years, and unbeknownst to myself, I have been teaching sexuality. I've been teaching about the families of some of our important historical contributors. I've been teaching about husbands and wives and children, and courageous heroes, historical figures who have been marginalized because of their sexuality. My students, my marginalized students, have taken note of that. One of my students, when I told her I was coming tonight, she said, "Thank you, Miss," our communities. So again, I apologize for being nervous, but thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you again for being here tonight and listening to our comments. I hope that you hear our words and our pleas. I want to add briefly that when I was growing up, I belonged to a religion that oftentimes people question me about. They ask me, why do you do this? Why do you do that? But I was confident enough in who I was that I never had to look for myself in a school book to stand up for who I knew I was and what I believed. And I was very confident in that. And I feel that that's what we need to teach our children, to be confident in who they are without having to point every single little individual difference out along the way. At the last meeting, Ms. Velasquez, you gave a nice speech about how tolerance is the least that we can extend each other and that we deserve better. Yet you then proceeded in your comments, as did other board members, to reach high above tolerance, to complete acceptance for some parents and families in the district, while simultaneously offering not even the least, your words, to other parents and families in the district. Unfortunately, when the district itself does not give ample and fair opportunities, see the irony there, for all parents to be involved, to come together, to work together, to hear each other, and to strive to understand each other, you leave us as a whole no other option than to only strive for and hope to tolerate. That is what your job as a school board is to do for our community, is to bring us together, and yet you have not. We placed faith in you in voting you in. Won't you please put some faith in us? I ask all parents in the room tonight who wish to have their voices heard in regards to their children's education to please stand. Again, we ask that you please put this on hold until all parents as a whole can be heard and given a seat at the table.
Good evening, board. Good evening. It's been explained to me that the intention behind including LGBT in elementary school curriculum is to allow for children to see themselves in the people that they are learning about. And that's what I would like to speak to. Why are schools encouraging children to identify within themselves their own sexual orientation, whether it be hetero, homo, or bisexual? Why are schools doing this? And a transformative view on gender at such a young, impressionable age. This will prove to be more confusing for them. Their bodies, brains, and emotions are not developed enough to make sense of this information yet. However, it will be age appropriate to introduce these topics when they are older. I will be talking about these topics differently to my 6-year-old, my 8-year-old, than I will my 11-year-old. Age appropriateness is subjective in many ways and should be left to the parent's discretion. It is not only my right, but my duty to teach my children who they are, just as it is every parent's right and duty that is here today. My children will gain their sense of identity through the rich culture and values of our family. They learn that their grandfather, who immigrated from the Philippines and endured discrimination and prejudice throughout his life. They will learn about their great-grandmother, who raised 6 children as a single mother, went to college in the 60s to complete her degree in social work. Their 5th great-grandparents fled from Norway to America to escape religious persecution in the 1800s. Each of these ancestors and many more provide a sense of identity and belonging for my children, and I hope that that provides identity for everyone's children. We believe that gender and sexual identity are sacred, and decisions related to that will influence their sense of well-being for the rest of their lives. This is not an area to tread lightly on. This is not an area to look for a group to vote with. This should be allowed for all of our children. They don't need to look to their school teacher or to the school institution.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm going to be translating this lady.
My name is Людмила Москаленко. Я хотела сказать, что когда меня в жизни притесняли,
I just want to say that when I had persecutions in my life,
моя мечта была, что мои дети, когда вырастут, когда я рожу детей, и они будут свободны.
I wanted for the dream for my children to be free when they would be grown up.
А сейчас смотрю, что нет того, что это все повторяется, то, что я пережила. А я хочу для детей моих свободы.
I want freedom for my children, but I see the same thing repeating for them. There's no freedom.
Thanks America for freedom. Вот сейчас я не вижу этого. Я хочу, чтобы была действительно свобода для моих.
I always saw America as freedom, but I don't see that now. I want freedom for my children.
The next 2 speakers are Lana and Andrew Patchu-Gurney. And that will take us to the 30-minute mark, and then the board will have a discussion whether to continue.
Good evening, everyone. I am against this education. My opinion is that school is for learning to have a good career in life. Stop filling up innocent brains with unnecessary education that will not help with career. It's the child's choice to learn about this, not the schools.
My name is Andrew. I'm a sophomore in this district, and I've learned biology in this district, and I've learned that there are men and that there are women. And this new curriculum contradicts the simple principles of biology. I'm also learning history and about the totalitarian government of the 20th century. And today with bills like this, we're seeing a similar pattern with compelled speech. Supreme Court Justice Jackson once stated that if there's any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no official higher petty can prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics. The state cannot force people to say something that they do not believe in. The state should not be allowed to force a biased opinion of sexuality upon children. This is the job of parents to decide when to teach and how to teach the topics of sexuality, religion, not of the states. Thank you.
We are at 30 minutes. Does the board wish to continue visitor comment? I move to continue visitor comment for 30 more minutes. Ms. Moret. Is there any discussion or a second? It was moved by Ms. Teresa, it was seconded by Mr. Hernandez. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, that was unanimous. Our next four speakers are Vera Badina, Victoria Sigans, Sherwood Hasty Jr., and Demetro Servier.
Я представляю общество христиан. I represent the society of Christians. Мы не против кого-то, мы за свои ценности.
We're not against someone, we are for our values.
Ценности христиан всегда были и всегда будут для нас самыми важными.
The values of Christianity would be the most important ones.
И это
for us.
подтверждается история на протяжении 2000 лет.
And the history proves this for 2000 years.
Христианские ценности — это именно традиционная христианская семья.
Christian values are the traditional family.
Мы не просто не хотим, а мы категорически против, чтобы наши дети принудительно обучались такому предмету.
We don't just want to, we are against this kind of subject being taught to our children.
Потому что это идет против наших принципов.
Because it's against our principles.
Я подтверждаю это принудительно, потому что принудительное обучение.
I repeat that it's just forced education.
Потому что дети обязаны изучать предмет.
Because the children, they must be educated in school.
И второе, это нельзя обучать, нельзя взять историю одного общества и внедрять в школу.
And second thing, you can't just take one society and just and bring it to school.
И смотря на историю Америки, именно она была построена на христианских ценностях.
And looking at the history of America, it was built on Christian values.
И было бы уместно, чтобы христианские ценности, историю христианства внедрили в школу.
It would be good to have the Christian history of America be back to school.
Но мы все-таки остаемся и просим, чтобы школа осталась платформой для общеобразовательных предметов.
But we're asking for the school to remain the education for different subjects.
А не продвижением истории отдельно заинтересованных представителей.
But not just forcing the history of just different interested parties.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Emily. Victoria, actually, she has yielded her time. And I just wanted to start off by saying that I believe that every parent in this room, regardless of the color of the shirt that you're wearing tonight, absolutely loves their children.
That's right.
So thank you so much for speaking up for your children, or the love of your children. Absolutely admire you. I respect you. Unfortunately, I'm not a parent, but I admire all parents. With that said, I also wanted to say that I too come from a country that was under oppression. I am an immigrant from a small country in Central America called Nicaragua. There used to be a lot of problems in the 80s, and now we're having problems again. It's a country that's been riddled with communism and socialism, and there's a lot of oppression. And it wasn't until just a few years ago that homosexuality was actually still illegal, and you could still be in prison. So when I hear people saying that they feel like they're back in their lands of oppression here in the US, I respectfully disagree. This is a country that has given me more freedom than I could have ever imagined. I I actually, probably obviously, identify as a lesbian, and I could have never lived the life that I'm living if I had stayed in that country. So I thank the United States, I thank the education that I've received here, and the support. I'm grateful to live in California. This is a state that loves and respects diversity. I also wanted to come here to talk about PFLAG Sacramento. I am the president of PFLAG Sacramento. It is a national organization that supports parents, friends, and families of LGBT youth. We actually meet once a month, right around the corner at St. Mark's United Methodist Church. Thanks to that church, we have had that support. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm a parent of my children and my child, and I'm against this bill, this curriculum, because it's against my my belief, and because it's also against the psychological. Can you help me with something?
I also wanted to mention that for those who need translation, you need to extend the time. This is your own rule, and you never did. We did only give 2 minutes, and you're not supposed to extend it to 4.
В таком возрасте дети еще не готовы психологически. Да. Вы пробовали дать ребенку driving license. Куда он попадет? If he is 6 years old. And if you, если вы дадите ребенку такую информацию, образование, он так же, как на машине, может попасть в аварию. Так, да, он не справится со своими эмоциями, со своей психологией. Да, и я категорически против сексуального образования. Должен быть определенный возраст, и это права родителей, чтобы учить. Сексуально образовывать. И также я до женитьбы, мы со своей женой даже не целовались. Да. И это образование, которое хотят ввести, это просто ужасно для меня, как родителя, и также для моего ребенка.
Before the talk starts, the next 4 speakers are Nadia Sergeant, McKenna Shunwall, Galina Bondar, and Hinwa Ivanova.
My name is Sherwood Hasty, and I am an evangelical Christian and a Baptist preacher. The Word of God says in Romans 1:26, "For this reason God gave them over to degrading passions. For their women exchanged the natural function for that which is unnatural. And in the same way also men abandoned the natural function of the woman and burned in their desire one toward another. Men with men committing indecent acts." He goes on to say, God gave them over to a depraved mind to do those things which are not proper. Ladies and gentlemen, that's why we're here today. A depraved mind is a mind that has lost the ability to discern moral right and wrong. And it goes on to say, and although they knew the ordinance of God, that those who practice such things are worthy of death, they not only do the same, but also gave heartily approval to those who practice them. And again, that is why we are here, because the curriculum being proposed today is to give hearty approval to what God calls an abomination. In the name of tolerance, you're considering adopting a curriculum that is unbiblical and offensive to Christians. You may say, who gives you the right to bring your Bible and seek to impose your religion and morality on our school district? I say, well, who gives you a right to bring your homosexual agenda and impose your irreligion and morality on our school district? Is being bullied, so we need to teach a pro-homosexual celebrative curriculum. So does that mean that if a conservative Christian child is bullied, we get to bring in our Bible and teach the Bible?
Sir, your time is up.
You may say you're being spit last point. You may say you're being not offensive. Sit down. I say what you sit down. Is even more offensive.
I'm still waiting to see an accurate information on American and world history in our textbooks. Where is the accurate information on our forefathers? And if you are teaching California history, where is the information on the Slavic community that has been a part of California since World War II? Please exclude sexual preferences from textbooks. You have 3 parents.
And he loves you.
Before I start, I want to say that Martin Luther King Jr. said, hate cannot drive out hate, for only love can do that. So I stand here looking at both sides and saying we love our kids. I love my siblings who are in this school district, so I stand here with the spirit of love for everyone here. My name is Kenna Shumway. I'm a junior in high school and the oldest sister of 3 kids in this public school district. As a child, my mom taught me various things I needed to know about the world that my school could not. During my sophomore year at Bella Vista High School, my U.S. history teacher turned on an R-rated film without sending home a permission slip first. Myself and a few of my fellow students realized this and respectfully asked to leave the room during the showing of the film. Later that evening, one of the parents of the said students emailed my teacher and the administration about this issue. My history teacher was no longer allowed to show that film in class.
So now I ask, if a high school teacher must send home a parental consent form to show an inappropriate film and history class, then why shouldn't the same apply to inappropriate topics being discussed in elementary and middle school classrooms? I humbly and respectfully ask that we find a better way to handle these important yet sensitive topics. Taking away the rights of parents should never be the extreme option we take. Only a parent can know when their child is mature enough to understand and act appropriately with the information taught about more sensitive topics. Please consider everyone's feelings and find another way to meet the needs of all of us. Thank you for your time.
Everyone, my name is Ina Ivanova and I'm a parent of 4 children. I want to thank you guys for working hard to educate our children and keeping them safe. Up until today, I always felt confident in the education system to help my kids grow mentally and physically. But today's issue makes me feel that my personal beliefs are being attacked and compromised. I believe that in school kids should be taught math, science, and history, and not someone's experience or beliefs. I believe in freedom of everyone's choice, and I strongly support of the idea that sex education should be up to the parents. I'm standing for the traditional family and traditional education. Please protect my family and my kids and all families like me. Please don't adopt this curriculum. Thank you.
Daniel Ivanov, George Lipsky, Nyla Lipsy, and Paulette Johnson.
Hello, my name is Daniel Ivanov. I'm here with my mom. Thank you for giving me the chance of going to school. Because I know in many countries around the world, many kids don't have the same opportunity. My parents are my best friends, and they are always educating me in every aspect of my life. My parents have always been the #1 example for me, and I am developing. They should be the only one that educated me about my parents, about my personal life. Thank you.
Good evening. Yes. There were people before me.
George Lipsky, or Lipsky, and Nyla Lipsay. Okay. Paulette?
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me today. I appreciate it. So before I get started, I just want to say that I am really impressed with the number of parents and families that are here to show their support for this. But I'm going to speak for the families that aren't here. I'm going to speak for the students in my class that don't have a voice of their parents because their parents don't know exactly how to speak for them. They have the right to be heard. They have a right to see themselves in this curriculum. I've been a part of this district for 25 years. When I first entered this district, you only saw white men in the history books. You only saw one type of family in the literature books. You never saw a family of color or a family that had immigrated in our books. But over the years, our district has become integrated. They have become more diverse, and they have become more to what our country was meant to be. And I am very proud of that. I piloted the social studies curriculum, both the weekly studies and the Pearson, and not one time did I feel like I was putting any sort of sexual orientation towards a family or towards a kid or anything. I was simply teaching about the members of history, honoring who they came for and what they stood up for. Okay? I also teach the sexual, sex ed of our district. And even in that curriculum, we never put those things on the kids. It's all about the information. Thank you very much.
If you can't say your name, we can find where we are on the list.
Good evening.
What's your name? Мое имя Инна.
Her name is Ina.
Я приехала с бывшего Советского Союза.
I came from the previous USSR.
Многие люди приехали в эту страну свободы, свобода не только заключается в свободе слова, но в свободе мышления.
A lot of people came here for freedom, and the freedom is not just the freedom of speech, it's also the freedom of our minds and our thoughts.
В этой стране иммигрантов живут многие люди из коммунистических стран.
In this country, there are a lot of people who came from the communist countries,
которые не понаслышке знают, что это такое коммунистическая диктатура.
who know firsthand what is communist dictatorship.
Когда у родителей отнимали их детей, потому что они воспитывали своих детей в свободе.
When the children were taken away from parents because of the way that they were raising them in their freedom.
Родителей отправляли в тюрьмы.
A lot of parents ended up in prisons.
Детей в детские организации, которые воспитывали по своим диктаторским условиям.
A lot of children were sent to orphanages that were raising them according to their own dictatorships.
Свобода выбора должна быть у родителей, чтобы воспитывать своих детей и принимать решения за свою семью, за здоровье, а также физическое и духовное здоровье.
Freedom should be allowed to the parents so they can decide for their families, for their children, about their health, their mental health, their physical and spiritual health.
Я против любой диктатуры.
I'm against any dictatorship.
Если нет свободы выбора, подумайте, то чем Америка отличается от диктатуры коммунизма?
If there is no freedom, then how is America different from a dictatorship that communist countries had?
Спасибо.
Thank you. Hello, board. My name.
Let's call the next board because they may be talking, but we're losing track.
The next speaker, 4 speakers will be Yana Vermeza, Yelizaveta, Zadoychek, Valentina Anitinwik, and Yelena Kovic. And if you'll say your name, it will help us.
Hello, board. My name is Yana. First of all, I want to say that we're not trying to dehumanize any individual. I believe that every life is highly valuable, and everyone has a freedom of choice on how they live that life. With that said, however, as parents and concerned citizens, we have to have that choice to be able to instill our values into our children so that when they grow up, they can make their own informed decisions in the future. So please reconsider adopting this curriculum. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Luba. Thank you for having me. I'm mother of 5, and I was raising my kids, and
I think it's my right to teach my kids what is private, and please, I asking you, please keep the education for health, for healthy, and today was first day when my son came from the school. He was in different room when his classmates were teaching this class, and when he came back, what he hears from his classmates, his behavior different because he's crying. It's kind of mental abusing him. So I'm asking as mother for my child, please don't put anything that will torture our kids. I think I deserve as mother because I raised my kids, was raising, I didn't sleep, I feed them, I do everything, and I think my love is passion for them, and you guys, you cannot tell that you love my kids more than I am, and you know what's better for my child. Please, I speaking from my heart. I was in Soviet Union. I know what it's to be torture. It's destruction for first of all, for your country, my country, because I came here as a refuge, and for my belief, and please.
Hello, I'm a mom of 3 kids, and 2 of them are attending Victoria Dixon. So I'm a mom of 3 kids. 2 of them are attending San Juan Unified District School. I'm here because I want to express my position in this matter. I really want to participate in my kids' life, especially in their educational life. We Slavic people came here for freedom, freedom of choice, freedom of religion, freedom of speech. That's why I'm here today, to express my freedom. I want to ask you guys to give me a choice to opt out of the sexual studies, social studies in school, because I think it's not the right timing for my child. Every child has its developmental. My child is not ready for this. And in my childhood, my mom introduced me to sexual education. I want to introduce to my kids the same thing. I want to teach them what means marriage and what is right and good for them. I want to ask you to introduce Bible school in schools, not sexual education, because America was primarily a Christian country. That's why we need Bible school, not sexuality. And let the parents decide what's important for their kids, because we have sleepless nights, and we don't sleep raising them. And let us have a freedom of choice, because we are in America, and we want our rights. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here, and for letting us parents participate in our kids' life. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elizaveta. I would like to say schools are to teach kids reading, writing, math, science that is backed up by DNA and facts, and history about people who fought for everyone's right, not just their own. Schools are not to teach personal beliefs. If everyone starts making kids learn personal beliefs in schools, schools will turn into chaos. If your child is having a problem or feeling sad or down or even suicidal, this is the lack of your own time in parenting with your kids. And I should have the right to say what my child needs to know and when, not the school. This curriculum is stealing the purity of our children. This curriculum will not make our kids smarter. It will make them confused. These sex-related topics should be in their own homes, not by schools. Not all kids are the same. Some kids need time to take in these sex-related topics. You do not know my children or even seen them. So why should you have the approval to put this curriculum into their schools? Please do not ignore us. This curriculum needs to be taken out of elementary schools.
Thank you for letting us parents come and on behalf of our children and Yelena Homich. So what I wanted to say was, first of all, this country has given us opportunities, and I'm an active member in the community. I work at Mercy Stephen Hospital, and for my kids, I want the same. I want them to have education. I want them to have the opportunity that I was given. When I came into 5th grade, I was not taught sexuality. I was taught science, math, which helped me to be like who I am right now. So I want my kids the same thing. I want them to learn math, science, like history, but history about our forefathers, not about sex. I want myself, I have 3 children, I want to teach them. I want them to know it from me, not from school. So I asked you not to pass this curriculum into our school, because then we'll be forced to take our kids out. Look at how much parents here are against. And they
We are at 30 minutes. Does the board wish to continue visitor comment, or do you wish to have a discussion with staff and with the board before taking vote? We are halfway through the days at this point.
А сейчас нету дискашн. Они сейчас решают либо им остановить слушание 30 минут еще и приступить к обсуждению, либо продолжить слушание еще 30 минут. Такая сейчас ситуация. Надеюсь, что слышно меня. Напишите, пожалуйста. Думают, если следует продолжать слушать людей выступления.
Yes, but I need to explain what we're talking about. They were sending people in that I hadn't called yet, and so we were trying to find where we were on the list so that we had an accurate number of speakers left. So that's what the discussion was. And with that, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Aye, that was unanimous. Okay, it was not unanimous, so that was a 4-0 vote.
We are checking schedule right now where we are
Yes.
проверяют расписание.
And no?
По расписанию. Что-то сбилось в программе.
And we are at the next 4 names: Dan Puris, Ala Martok, Mary Stokes Bites, and Ruth Puris.
Unified School District. I ask you not to adopt the LGBTQ agenda. I stand against the LGBTQ. You do not own the kids, the parents do. So the parents should teach the kids about what to do. We as students and kids do not need to know about your LGBTQ lifestyles. We need to learn about clean history. LGBTQ has no part in history because it does not be able to reproduce. It is your lifestyle. It's your life to choose, so you do not need to interfere with other people's lives. You can teach this to your children if it's possible, if you can have them. Thank you for listening. And I came here to learn about useful things that will give me life, not LGBTQ. LGBTQ will mess up my brain, and my brain will end up in the garbage if I learn about it.
Thank you, Board Superintendent and Ms. Cunningham. My name is Mary Stokey-Vides. I am an English teacher for both middle and high schoolers here in our district.
And also I have a 10-month-old son who I'm very proud will be a student in the San Juan district as well. I love all of my students. I really strive to give them both excellent instruction for their future careers and also to be able to learn in a safe environment. I've only been teaching for 2 years, and in that time I have had multiple students express suicidal thoughts as a result of bullying and ridicule frequently because of their sexual orientation, but for other reasons as well. We even had a student be assaulted as a result of their sexual orientation. This curriculum just gives my students a chance to see themselves represented. I hear a lot of voices saying that a lot of people saying that their voices are not being heard. People's voices have been heard. This is a matter of state law, and it is our board's responsibility to find curriculum and adopt curriculum that aligns with that. Also, as a student of history, I know that history is not neutral. There are decisions that are made every day about what to include and what not to include, and it is the right thing to do for our students to see themselves in the curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you so much for letting me speak tonight. I'm the mother of...
If you don't hold the microphone, it won't make that noise.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm the mother of 2 kids, and I would like to speak on behalf of all the mothers here and all the parents. We want to stay strong. We want to stay strong for our kids' rights, and we're here to try to. And we don't want you to take our kids' innocence away. Our kids rely on their parents, and we as parents should be the ones who make decisions for our children, and we should be their first advance. Don't remove a parents' rights in making decisions by not letting parents opt out on certain educational facts that we are not agreeing with. State of California code states that kids could only be taught when kids are ready to respond emotionally. And the topics that are being taught right now to our children regarding their sexual identity are not age appropriate, and we're here to say we will not tolerate this agenda as parents. We have parental rights, and our kids need to have, and as parents, we need to be informed about decisions that our kids are being taught. Where their protection. Main concern for the schools is to educate children and to make our kids strong and fluent in their education. You're here to say that you're here supporting equality for children, but you're excluding regular kids from regular education.
And you're over time now. Thank you. This is the last call for Ruth Puris. She didn't come when I called that group. And then following Ruth would be Amir Tahari, Brian Martin, Dimitri Rosen, and Robert Walden.
Thank you for listening to us. I know you've been here for a couple hours now, so I know it's going to go along. You might remember I'm here to hear. I came here about a month ago. I'm a teacher over at San Juan High School. I teach Gov and Econ. Behind me is another teacher, teaches ethnic studies, S.D. Sanchez. That's not my son, but let's be honest. He's, of course, one of our students, one of my avid students in the future here. Last time I was here, I talked about my personal upbringing and how important that is to incorporate that in our community. This time around, I just want to talk about the reality. And the reality is that it's 2019, and our community has changed. It's not changing in the future, the change is already occurred. And we're seeing it not just in our high school students, we're seeing it in our elementary school students. And when we're talking about acceptance and tolerance, what we're not talking about is community. And the idea of community is not necessarily just hearing what they have to say, but understanding what they have to say, and understanding where they come from. Because those children who grow up, they're going to be your coworkers. They're going to be your colleagues, and one day they might be your boss. And understanding where they come from, who they are, and not looking at them like they're different is really important for success. And when we talk about education, we're talking about success for all of our students. Whether you agree with it or not, that is what we're all here for. And success comes from understanding everybody, whether it's the LGBTQ community, whether it's people from other countries, Ukrainian, whether it's, of course, our South American brethren. It's all the same. So I sit here saying, we saw this at the Scopes trial, we saw this at Little Rock, Arkansas. This nearly is not as much a big deal, but it still plays a role. So you know what the right side of history is.
If we go back 100 years, there were passionate groups like those here tonight protesting the inclusion of women in the democratic process. They've been protesting their admission to colleges and professions, and they're taking positions of leadership for over 100 years before that. 50 years ago, there were passionate groups protesting the inclusion of people of color in the democratic process and their admission to colleges and professions. And they're taking positions of leadership for even 500 years before that. Ours is a pluralistic society. It's not a majoritarian one. It's not a monolithic one. The inclusion of every minority is essential to the fabric of our society. I grew up in a marginalized religion. There weren't a lot of us, but we took pride in being a peculiar people. If someone of our faith became famous or successful in any field, even the golfer Johnny Miller, we felt pride in that representation, that we weren't really alone. Today, there are children in every one of our schools who, when you learn that Socrates, Alexander the Great, Da Vinci, and Michelangelo, Tchaikovsky, Elton John, and countless others who have enriched our culture so much, when these children learn they're not alone and not really queer for being queer, and that they have a place at our table in a pluralistic society, they learn that they have a real chance because of their role models, that they may also mightily contribute to our society. The claim that a group is being discriminated against so that it may continue to discriminate against others is so common, so human. We need strong leadership to show us a better way.
Hello everybody, thanks for the opportunity to stand here and talk. As many of those who were here, I came from the Soviet Union, and I'm sorry for my language limitations, and if you smile while I talk, I realize that you support me, and just thank you for your patience. So, I'm here just to confirm my opinion and my position as far as training my kids. I have 7 of them. And you know what, I just have a question, maybe for you or for all of us. You know, my kids at home, they like to play, right? Every kid like to play. Kids like to play? Yeah, so sometimes they play dinosaurs, right? Sometimes you play horses, right? Or sometimes they play different animals. And you know, like kids, they go, oh, I'm a horse, and they start to do things like horse. So, does it mean that because of that, I need to think, maybe they were supposed to born like horses or animals, not humans? Or I'm a parent, I know where to lead my kids, and what to show them, what to teach them, when to teach them, and you know, as a parent, I'm really concerned to give them the best they're supposed to get. So, I really would like to ask you not to implement things that will be harmful to the kids, things that they will not be able to hold on to. And things that will lead, not just my kids, not just these kids, but I would say the whole society, the whole country, the whole state, to the way that might be really destructive. So I ask not to implement these rules into schools, and let parents decide when and what to teach as far as sexuality and these kind of issues. Thank you so much.
Oksana Rinovich, Timothy Irvin, and Maria Estrada.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert Waldo. I'm a 20-year teacher in this district, and I'm very proud of that fact. And I teach American history. And part of the teaching of American history is a story of the expansion of our collective freedoms. Our collective ancestors fought at Bunker Hill and Gettysburg and in France and in the Philippines and all over the world, so that all members of our society can be embraced, and the accomplishments of every person in California and in our nation can be celebrated. And throughout our history, people have stood up and tried to slow the march of teaching about all groups in this country. Embrace this curriculum as it adjusts and acknowledges that reality. Moreover, I address this board because I took offense at some of the reported Christian comments that were made. The Christ that I embrace is about love and righteousness.
Excuse me. Let's go back to respect again.
I will take the prospect of going to hell with a grain of salt, but I will say that Christ is about love. And if this district embraces love, and it embraces inclusion, and it embraces the combined experiences of all Americans, that is not only the patriotic thing to do, it is the righteous Christian thing to do. Adopt the new social studies curriculum.
I'm an alumni of the San Juan School District. I'm also a U.S. Army veteran. I actually fought for people's rights. I'm willing to die and kill for them. I have been trained for them, and I have done that. And this is not a question of anybody's rights. I'm a taxpayer here. What you are asking me to do is, based on my tax dollars, support your views, your religion, your way of life. I refuse to pay for it. Pay for it yourselves. Yes. Teach your own kids your values. Yes. Do not try to instill your values on my kids. I am tired of my tax dollars being wasted on liberal social experiments while our schools are abject failures on the global scale when it comes to, compared to much poorer countries, by the way, when it comes to subjects like math and science. You can rig the results all you want, but the facts stand. I actually traveled the world, and I am a witness how much smarter those other kids are with much less dollars, and they can actually add. They can actually write. They actually have various skills that we do not have anymore. They're China, producing engineers at an alarming scale. I am against my tax dollars being wasted on your pathetic programs. Start doing your jobs. Start teaching math. Start teaching English. Start teaching real science. Not the social sciences, not that crappy what you call science.
My name is Oksana Rinovich, and at the very beginning
this room said words, one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. Also, signs on the wall have beautiful meaning, inspire, educate, contribute, succeed. But I feel how my kids' rights for liberty and justice are taken away by adoption of sexual education curriculum. That violates their and my rights of choice under the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. My kids are not going to be inspired, contributed, they're not going to be educated in the age-appropriate way. My kids are not going to be successful under bullying and pressure to accept all of what is going to be taught. My kids should be pushed to change their sex identity. Why? Why they gonna be valued by framework as disabled if they identify themselves with only one gender? Why they can be hurt so easily? No one is have to be bullied, including my kids. This curriculum should be delayed because it will increase number of raping in school restaurants, because kids will get knowledge how to experiment with sex, and kids are kids. They will want to practice their knowledge. Yes, most of the people in this room live in California 30, 20, 15, 10 years back. 50 years ago, transgenderism was valued as disorder and was treated with medical help. Now, you already teach my kids that their parents are evil only because they don't want to follow gay's lifestyle. For the last 30 minutes.
Your time is up.
Your time is up.
Time is up.
Sit down.
Yeah, and your time is up. Thank you very much. Timothy Irvin.
Hello. I guess I'm here representing the gay agenda. I'm not 100% my name is Timothy Irvin. Lived and worked here in Arden for over a year now. I have a combined master's in international studies and public policy. And I'm a pretty successful middle class, mostly straight passing white guy. I didn't kill myself at 17, and I didn't kill myself at 23. But I came pretty close. And I probably came closer than is healthy for most human beings. So I'm just here to remind you of a couple sobering facts. So LGBTQ people, as someone said earlier, are 9 times more likely to harm themselves and 3 times more likely to become homeless. Over 50% of homeless people are queer, and they are homeless because they are part of the LGBTQ community and they're homeless. We are shown time and time again that we are not welcome. We see it in your signs that say an accurate education is sexualizing children when it simply states facts about Harvey Milk the same way it does about George and Martha Washington. We've heard it for decades with calling gay men pedophiles, when study after study shows that conservative-fine religious men perpetrate the majority of violence. And we hear it in the claims to be Christian while judging us and casting us out with code words that every queer person here knows the real meaning of. And we feel it deep in our souls for the entirety of our lives, as almost every institution in society teaches heteronormativity. I see it here tonight, and the gay and the trans children of the parents in this crowd also see it. Some of y'all's kids are gay, and they can hear loud and clear who they can and can't trust. I also see a positive alternative in this curriculum, and I think that you know the research and the facts and the legislature back this up. Please endorse and recommend and adopt this curriculum. We need it, and the community needs it.
Thank you very much.
My name is Maria Estrada. Tengo 2 hijos en escuela Carmichael Elemental, and I have 2 children in Carmichael Elementary School. Yo vengo en representación de los hispanos porque ellos no hay manera de que se enteraran de esta junta. Pretty much I'm here representing the Hispanic community because there was no way for them to find out about this meeting. Porque no dan documentos en español para esta junta. Because there is no documentation in Spanish to the parents about this type of meeting. Entonces, muchos padres no saben de la ley de AB 329. So therefore, a lot of Hispanic parents don't know about the AB 329 law. No estoy de acuerdo con eso porque nos quitan el derecho de ser padres. Which I'm not in agreement with because pretty much it takes our rights to be parents. Para darle la educación conforme a nuestros principios a nuestros hijos. It takes away our rights to give them the education according to our principles. Las cosas que ustedes les quieren enseñar con la ley AB 329. The kind of things that you want to teach the kids with the law AB 329. No estoy de acuerdo porque les van a dar a leer libros inadecuados para sus edades. I'm not in agreement with because you are going to give them books to read and not appropriate for their age. Y su educación, yo pienso que como padres nosotros se las debemos de dar sexualmente. And as far as their sexual education, I believe that it's our parents' duty to educate them in sexuality. According to their age. Muchas gracias por escucharme. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Michelle, Denver, Vera Canono, Tanya Lysak, and Julia Lazar Rescue.
Good evening, Michelle Ben-Hur, and thank you for hearing everybody here tonight. I'm here to speak in support of this curriculum. I have been a lawyer working in the child welfare system for almost 30 years. Not once have I seen a child harmed because they were exposed to sex education. Not once have I seen a child harmed because they were exposed to information about lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual, questioning, or queer people. Where I have seen children harmed is by them being told that it is not okay for them to be who they are, by being beaten by people who are beating them in the name of God to chase out their gayness, by suppressing them and marginalizing them. What we as a society do here in our schools is teach more than math, more than English, more than science, more than history. We teach how it is right to treat each other. And what is right to treat each other is to treat each other as we are all God's children. Whoever your God is, whatever your faith or lack of faith, we are all human, we are all deserving of respect, and we are all deserving of representation and not marginalization. Thank you, and please vote yes.
I would like to apologize to you because I did not stop when the people were saying no, and I really am sorry that I didn't.
That's okay, thank you.
Good evening, my name is Tatiana Lysak, and I just want to introduce myself. I am a health public nurse, and I go from home to home helping people, and I see people not in their best situation. So there are people who are, I'm sorry, but they smell, they don't take showers, and I provide care no matter what religion and orientation is. And I provide this care with love and understanding that we should treat each other equally. So I just want to be short. My children carry DNA of my DNA and my husband's. And no matter what paper will say, they will always carry my DNA. They are our property. And what would you do? What would you do if somebody would invade in your own home without your permission? I bet you would call 911 or you will pull out the gun. So that's what we do now. This is our children, and let us to decide what is better for our children.
Yes.
That's pretty much it, short, and we're absolutely terrified because 5 and 6 years old children would like to play with the scooters outside. They are having good time with their own siblings. But if they will bring this knowledge from schools, they will be locked in rooms and thinking if they are boys or girls. This is not gonna be their childhood. I remember my childhood. I had good time playing outside and learning, thinking.
Good evening, everybody, and members of the school board. My name is Julia Lazarescu. I'm a mother of 3 kids, and 2 of them currently right now at the San Juan District, Cambridge High School. I'm a very concerned mom because once I've heard about this curriculum, I started finding out what's going on. And I'm coming from a very traditional family where I was raised on the foundation of the Bible, and that's how I am teaching my kids as well. So I finally went to the San Juan District to look at the curriculum, and just because my oldest child is going to the 4th grade next year. So I just want to quote some of the curriculum. Week 24 is the 4th grade, Charlie Parkhurst. And Charlie was born, and I quote, in Vermont, 1805, but ran away from home at the age of 12. He was a stagecoach driver, and he never said that he was born female. And being accepted as a man, Charlie had a freedom that women didn't have. So my question in this little article, what's the point of this article? Is it because he ran away from home at 12, or is it because he lied to everybody and nobody knew that he was born female, and it gave him a right to vote? Is it how brave it is? What our kids are supposed to learn from this article? Let's move on to a different one, and it's George Takei, week 33. It's over here. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the name incorrectly.
And that's time.
Please do not adopt this curriculum.
Your time is up. This is the last call for Vera Canono. And then the next 4 speakers after that are Denisa Atiles, Brenda Donaldson, Alan LaFaso, and Molly Phillips-Nugent. The last 4 names, Denisa Atiles, Brenda Donaldson, Alan LaFaso, and Molly Phillips-Nugent. Our last. You're who? Oh. Brenda Donaldson, yes, was called. Okay. Please start.
Okay, so I'm Brenda Donaldson. I'm here tonight to ask you to not implement this curriculum.
I have been very disappointed that the voice of the parents who are concerned about this curriculum has seemingly fallen on deaf ears. A lot has been spoken about fairness and inclusivity, while at the same time, dozens of comments as well as thousands of signatures from parents have been grossly ignored. We have seen tonight that it is not only the parents, but also the children who are opposing this indoctrination. And I would like to echo a few of the thoughts that were shared tonight. It is interesting that we are here tonight talking about the history curriculum, when if you take a look back at the history, there are many examples of when government has tried to impose their will on the people, which over time we can see has disastrous results. When we are seeing this happen here now in our school district. This curriculum change, instead of bringing the community together, has been severely divisive. I'm asking that you delay the implementation of this curriculum. Please give the community a chance to come together and decide on a solution that is acceptable to all those who are involved. And in closing, just wanted to read a little part from a history book that says, "Now it is not common that the voice of the people desireth anything contrary to that which is right, but it is common for the lesser part of the people to desire that which is not right. Therefore, this shall ye observe and make it your law, to do your business by the voice of the people." And if we hear what is being said tonight, the voice of the people is to not implement this curriculum. So we ask you sincerely to reconsider and not implement this curriculum. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Danessa Tillis, and I am the co-chair of the Sacramento County ACLU. And ACLU Southern California co-sponsored this in its stages of legislation through 2011. And when it was implemented in 2012, they joined the Fair Education Act Coalition to help shape this curriculum and the inclusion of LGBT people. So I wanted to be here today to represent that. And I also want to be here today as a Puerto Rican bisexual woman in my community with a son that is in the San Juan Unified School District. It's an IEP plan. He is on the autism spectrum, and he gets bullied about his gay mom. He gets bullied and called gay. He is not represented in history books currently, and I don't think it's an unreasonable request to say that Harvey Milk was a gay man. If you don't want to explain what gay is, you don't have to explain what gay is, but we should include representation in our history books. Stonewall riots is a part of civil rights history, and it belongs in our history books. This is something that was codified in law 7 years ago. And all of the wonderful people in this room who care a lot about their families and their children had the opportunity at every stage to voice their opinion to the California Department of Education. It is now the law, and it is the responsibility and duty of this board to implement that law, and I hope that you'll do so. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Costa and members of the board. My name is Alan Picasso, and I'm here on behalf of the Rainbow Chamber of Commerce. We're a 6-county chamber of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender business leaders throughout the region. From a business perspective, I want to offer an employer observation that, and by the way, I wanted to say that I'm here to support adoption of curriculum. But from a business perspective, how important it is in today's workplace for workplaces to be successful, that students and workers are able to function and collaborate with people of diverse backgrounds. Employers spend an enormous amount of resources inculcating that in their workplaces, and these kinds of frameworks help you do that. On a more personal note, most of the leaders in our association, our chamber, have experienced lots of discrimination in children, even though today, and I'm kind of having some flashbacks this evening, and I'm reminded of Mr. Edwards' comment that the age of sexual orientation awareness, according to that Pew study he cited, is 10. And on a personal note, I really want to tell you, because I'm thinking about my 10-year-old son having silly kinds of feelings that my 10-year-old gay self had to other young people of my own age at the time. I know it's very hard for people to get their head around what age-appropriate experience and sexuality is, but I want to say my 10-year-old self, what I was feeling back then, was not a degrading passion that should have marked me for death. That's what I heard here tonight. Quickly, I want to underscore, since we've got a lot of use of history, I hope everyone appreciates, I hope it's in the frameworks that Stalin, Soviet Union, Hitler's Germany, and all those regimes were very discriminatory.
And thank you.
Hi, my name is Molly Phillips-Nugent, and I just wanted to stand up here wearing green and the sea of red to lend my voice in favor of this curriculum. As Vanessa so eloquently said, it's already California law, so there was the chance to argue against this earlier before that was implemented. I didn't learn to be straight because I read about Mary Todd Lincoln and Abraham Lincoln, just like folks won't. I mean, it's just ludicrous to me that that would be a suggestion. I've heard everybody's responses here tonight, and I cannot think of one single downside to implementing this this curriculum. So representation matters. There's a lot of white straight people in textbooks already. I think we could do a few clear ones. Thank you.
And that concludes visitor comment. Okay, I apologize. There are two more. Olivia Sloss and Kim Angelo. They were on the list. It doesn't show on my computer, it shows on his. So with apologies.
Hello, my name is Olivia Sloss, and I am 17 years old, and I was a student in the San Juan Unified School District from kindergarten through 8th grade. During my time at San Juan, I was encouraged to pursue excellence in all areas and to question the world around me. Additionally, I was told to stand up when I saw an injustice being performed and not to be just a bystander. I was not originally planning on speaking at this meeting, but I feel compelled to voice my opinion on the topic of an inclusive curriculum within social studies classes. I would now like to read the mission statement of this school district. Valuing diversity and excellence, the San Juan Unified School District's mission is to educate and inspire each student to succeed and responsibly contribute to a radically evolving world by providing innovative, rigorous, student-focused instruction and programs in a safe, caring, and collaborative learning community. How can students within your school district be expected to, quote, contribute to a, quote, radically evolving world without a complete knowledge of the history that made our world evolve to where it has today, and an understanding of the backgrounds of all people? I have heard arguments opposing this new curriculum, stating that it may make some people and students uncomfortable. I believe that history is not meant to be a comfortable topic. Instead, it is meant to educate on how the world has gotten to where it is today. By excluding entire groups of people from social studies curriculum, you are denying them the right to have their struggles be known. If you truly want students to contribute to the world and make an impact, as you have stated in your mission statement, I urge you to pass the curriculum that is inclusive of all people, to allow them to leave the nurturing environment of your schools with the information they need to fully understand the world around them and make well-informed decisions in these times of change. Thank you.
My name is Kim Angelo. I'm the Vice President of the Sacramento Stonewall Democrats. Stonewall has over 300 current members, and our members strongly support the adoption of the proposed K-8 curriculum. Lesbian, gay, bi, and transgender students face significant bullying and harassment. The historically inaccurate exclusion of LGBT Americans in social science sustains that environment of discrimination and bias in schools. So I ask that you vote to adopt the curriculum today.
That now concludes visitor comment, and I ask the staff to rejoin. Do any board members have questions for staff? They've done their presentation at the last board meeting. Any staff questions? Ms. Viescas?
I don't have any questions, but I did want to take the opportunity to make a comment. And first, I will thank you to staff for all the work that's gone into this. It's been a long road. And when I quote back some people who come during public comment, I hope it's a demonstration that I was in fact listening to every single public comment. So if you take offense, I apologize. But someone did say, you know, we've been doing fine in terms of there not being a need to adopt this. And we have a different item up today, but it was something I was going to reference 2 weeks ago as well on student climate in our schools. And we sit up here every other Tuesday, and time again, all of our data shows we're not doing fine. Because when our school survey results for the question that says school climate is positive, nurturing, and caring, and when only half of our students respond affirmatively, and our adults respond affirmatively at a 30% higher rate, that means we're missing the mark. We are not listening to our students. When asked the question, people are respectful to others at my school, and less than half of our students respond affirmatively. And well over almost 80% of our adults, both staff and parents, respond affirmatively. Again, we are missing the mark. We are not listening to our students. This curriculum will make so many strides in terms of sending the signal to our staff and to our students that our schools are a place of acceptance. And that's a higher bar than tolerance, and it's my job to make sure we get there. And I will not turn my back on those students. I refuse to do that. And so when the time is appropriate, I will be proud to move this item.
Can you accept me?
Woo!
Then do it. Accept us.
I need to remind the audience that you have now crossed the line in terms of showing respect. We have listened respectfully to you, and we expect the same respect for our conversation. If that's not possible, then you don't need to be in the room with us. But you will show respect, just as we showed respect and didn't say anything to you as each of you spoke. Dr. McKibben.
You should have asked this some time ago, but I didn't. The vote of the panel looking at the elementary thing was 24-6 in terms of to select California Studies Weekly Social Studies. In the 6 people who did not vote for that, was there any pattern among those 6, or was it divergent?
What do you mean by pattern, Dr. McKibben?
For example, were there those that looked at it from a religious point of view?
No, Dr. McKibben, that was not part of the discussion. I think for those 6 people who voted for McGraw-Hill over Studies Weekly, generally, I think that they preferred the way that the content and the shifts of the framework were addressed in McGraw-Hill, not specifically any particular group of people in the content, but just it really in terms of the standards. And so they preferred that, but the 24 votes for Studies Weekly did believe that Studies Weekly did a very good job of covering the historical content and the shifts of the framework as well.
Ms. Crease.
I have a few things. I know that you covered a lot of this last meeting, but it'd be wonderful if we can go over just the timeline once more of how we got to this place in two ways. So the law, the FAIR Act, which passed, if I recall correctly, in 2012. Yes, 2012 was effective. Okay. And this was a state law, the FAIR Act, not a federal law. Correct. which requires the inclusivity of LGBTQ leaders among many others. Correct. Okay. Can you please remind me for the record, why are we just now doing adoption?
So the state framework was adopted in 2016 for history, social science, which made some instructional recommendations and also incorporated multiple pieces of legislation. So I think with history, social science, it's important to remember that really it's the only content area where legislation drives the content and the inclusion of particular materials. So not only did we have the FAIR Act, but we also had several pieces of legislation dating back to 2005, which is the time that the state adopted the previous set of history, social science materials. And so when that framework was adopted, it incorporated the changes from all of that legislation in addition to the instructional recommendations of the framework writers. Once the framework was adopted, then publishers began writing materials to address the framework, and then the state itself initiated an adoption process. That adoption process took place through 2016 and 2017 with, of course, a State Board of Education vote in November of 2017. At that point, because our administrative regulations require us to get new materials in the hands of students in grades K through 8 within 36 adoption, then we began the process of adopting materials the fall after that, only because like a November start is pretty late for a process this large. So that's how we got to here. Does that answer your question, Ms. Friesen?
It does. I have a couple more, if that's okay. If we were not to adopt this curriculum, is it correct that teachers would still, to adhere to the law, would still be required to teach within the FAIR Act, teach with inclusion, but they just wouldn't have any guidance from us at the district level? No curriculum, no information.
That's correct.
So everyone would be real.
Yes.
But expected, and it would be illegal for them not to do so if we didn't. Let me rephrase that. Would we be breaking the law if we did not teach inclusive material?
Correct. Yes.
Because of the state law?
Yes.
You know, let me follow up on that a little bit too, because when, you know, this recommendation is coming from me, and, you know, as much as the board has taken a lot of heat tonight, the staff has done a lot of work, and this is coming from me. And when we make a recommendation like this, and we look at a framework that has been adopted, and we look at an expectation that these materials are being taught, that's one of the issues that we look at as well. You know, I had lots of questions about training as well related to materials. If we don't adopt materials, there will be no training provided. And through the adoption, we will be able to provide training for teachers. I've even said that there will be an opportunity based on, you know, I met with 3 individuals last week. Some feedback they had, we're going to incorporate even into the some of the training pieces of it as well. And so a concern that I had was, if I'm a principal at a school and I have 2 teachers at a similar grade, one could choose to teach something to one extreme, the other could choose to go to the other extreme. And I think by providing some parameters and some guidelines, we actually provide support, I would say, for many of you that have concerns, rather than allowing this to not have any guidelines whatsoever. That's a conversation I've had closely with individual board members as well. I've had that conversation with community members. And I think that in reality, it is the responsible thing for us to do as well, to adopt a curriculum, and then to adopt a curriculum, and then be able to provide the training for the teachers. And again, training where we have had feedback from as many folks as we can. And you know, one of the things, we've had this conversation, we had a board member who no longer is on this board say this last year, that sometimes people say they're not heard. And sometimes we say being heard equates to agreement. And I shared this example the other day with the group that I met. My son or daughter could say something to me, and I might say no. And they could say, you didn't hear me. And the reality is, no, I heard you, I disagreed with you. And so sometimes that's where we come to. And that can be the case. But we can hear you, and you can still have impact, for example, maybe on the training piece of it. So, I appreciate that question. I just wanted to follow up a little bit more on behalf of Nicole to take that even to the next level about the materials, what that could look like if we didn't, and then the training piece that even goes along with that.
Thank you. I have a couple more items. So thank you for that. Can you quickly, if possible, I'm not sure that everyone knows, so for the record, can you talk about the process that took place within the district as we rolled out, when that started, the timeline, just a synopsis of that process?
Absolutely. We started last spring with
focus on stakeholder engagement and reach.
Yep, you got it. We started last spring with multiple community events, 2 days to be exact, a family information night, and also an opportunity to preview all of the materials that we would be considering. We communicated that through a variety of channels, the Carmichael Times, for example, Facebook groups, etc. We also, in addition to that, engaged in a process of inviting community members to sit on the committee, and we did have several members of the community sit on our adoption committees to be able to provide input and really be in the room to make a decision about what would move forward for pilot. And then as we moved through the piloting process this winter, we had an open review period where people could come in and review the materials at any point during our office hours. We had an evening event, which was very well attended compared to some of our other events. And then we had a family information night this winter as well in February. And in addition to that, in our FAQ document, all of the online access has been provided, and that document has been publicized quite widely. And anybody who has reached out to me to make an appointment since our office hours have been over, I definitely welcomed them into looking at the materials and sat down with a parent for a couple of hours last week, in fact, and talked through the materials with her.
Thank you. I'm almost done. So I just want to remind folks in the room and inform folks that may not know, I do have a child attending a district school. He's in 6th grade. So the decisions that come down tonight do affect my child. So I just want folks to be aware of that. It's not just your kids, it's my baby too. I want to say just a little bit about the stakeholder process and the advocacy. There's been a lot of advocacy from both sides on this topic. So I just want folks in the room to know that there's been a lot of emails. Not everyone has seen everything. A lot of emails. There was a lot of public comment at the last meeting, and a lot of emails before that. There have been phone calls. There's been a lot of advocacy and engagement on both sides. And I just want everyone to be aware of that. And, usually we only do 30 minutes of public comment. At both meetings, this board made the decision to extend public comment to ensure every voice was heard. And we didn't have to do that. We wanted to do that to ensure we really were getting all sides. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. I first would like to thank the staff that worked so hard to get us here tonight. I would like to thank all those that made comment tonight as well as 2 weeks ago, and even those that sat in silence and support on whatever side you may sit on. I had a big statement to make, and I don't usually print out my statement, but I will pick up on just one part because my colleagues have talked a little bit about this. There's been a lot of people that have suggested we delay the adoption to allow for the discussion. However, that direction only postpones the inevitable. It won't change the decision that we have to make or make items that are causing discomfort go away. Everything on the FAIR Act will still need to be discussed. Therefore, delaying the adoption would only cause us to be faced with the same vote later. This material has already gone through various committees. The first, our adoption committee, consisted of teachers and parents. The second, our curriculum and standard committee, who voted 100% to adopt this material. In addition, our superintendent feels this material is the best of all the material vetted to be the best for our district. If we vote for the adoption through tonight, the superintendent, as he mentioned tonight, has committed to committee members, has committed to have various members of the community be part of the Information and Material Committee. Now that being said, I want to, this is me talking personally now, that there's no question that you as parents are the best teachers your parents have. We clearly understand that. I have had 4 children go through this district. When it came to their sex ed in middle school, my wife went and checked the material and felt that it was not, or our children were not mature enough to handle it. So we opted out as parents because we felt this was the best for our children. We urge you to continue to do what you feel is best for your children. But as mentioned here tonight, we are at kind of a dilemma as a school board. What we are adopting are items that are mandated by California law. There's nothing we can do about it.
That's not true.
Well, I think you heard tonight, but again, so I support our superintendent. He has gone through a lot. Him and I have had hours of discussion on this subject. This item has brought attention to our community greater than any other that I have seen as a board member in 8 years. And it's great to see, believe it or not. It really is. It shows that we have parents that care about their kids. I almost urge you and challenge you to see what other districts have done about their adoption, how they did it. I think that you will find that we probably did a little more. And as my colleagues have mentioned, we do care about you. We hear what you're saying, and we do want what's best for your children.
Dr. McKibben, did you? Yeah, we have. Well, I haven't had an opportunity to talk, so I wanted to give you that opportunity. Okay. I would also like to thank staff. I know this has been grueling. I know that you have put heart and soul into this, and I know that it has taken a huge toll just to always be out there and trying to explain this is a law. You are upholding the law. And that is what America is about, is upholding the law. And so to staff, to the superintendent, to the members of cabinet who put in just untold hours on this issue, to my fellow board members. We talked about the last board meeting and this board meeting with visitor comments, but actually the 2 previous board meetings, we had previous visitor comments as well. We have had, I didn't count them, but I know that at least 10 or more per day since we have been discussing this issue. And we have read all of that. We have listened. We also have read all of the materials that you've provided, and you have done an exemplary job of providing materials. But what I know for sure is no adoption is just not an option. It is not an option because it robs children of a right to an education that explains the history and the current reality of their community, their state, and their country. And I know that asking TK through 5th grade teachers to develop their own curriculum that includes the FAIR Act and includes the framework and develop it on their own is an unreasonable burden. And it could have unintended consequences because if the teacher leaves something out or if the teacher puts something in that people disagree with, the teacher is the person that is having to deal with that issue, and I don't agree with that either. I also know for sure that nobody will be happy with our decision as a whole. So that we know. I keep thinking about 2 weeks ago, and a retired teacher spoke, and she talked about the history of social science adoption in which Buddhism and Hinduism was included. And I had totally forgotten it. But I sat in the audience as a staff member as we listened to person after person talk about how they were afraid that this would confuse children or encourage children away from their religion. And I remember sitting at the time and thinking, I don't think that's going to happen, because if the values are instilled in the family, I think that's where children will be. So I was so grateful to her that she reminded me that those concerns were brought forward and they did not come to fruition. And I listened to the students who have endured an enormous sense of being invisible. No one should feel invisible in this district. No one. Everyone should see themselves positively and be seen by others as a positive human being. The last board meeting, I talked about one student in my career, and people were just saying, oh, this is 2018 and these are the statistics. The child I was talking about was 1982. He attempted suicide as a 4th grader because his family could not see or hear him, his psychiatrist could not see or hear him, and his peers could not see or hear him. And he, in 4th grade, decided there was nothing left. It wasn't worth living. Fortunately, the suicide attempt was at school, did not succeed. And he grew up. So, as I listen to this, I can think over my career, I can name students every single year who have felt that way, felt that despair. And in this district, that is just not the way things should be. I respect every staff member, I respect our superintendent and his recommendation and the recommendations of staff. And so with that, I will be voting yes on this adoption. Dr. McKibben, did you need to say something, or would you like to? Okay.
I move that we adopt
I'm getting your word wrong. It's the TK History Social Science textbook.
It's been moved by Dr. McKibben, seconded by Ms. Vasquez. All those in favor?
Can we have discussion, please?
Certainly.
One of the things that, as we've gone through this over the last years, the literally hundreds of hours that staff have put in on this, and the students that went through the examination of those textbooks, all of the people that came and looked at the things, in my email, in the kinds of people that have come and talked about this discussion, I count literally well into the hundreds. I want to thank you all for being part of this democratic process and expressing your views. I will be voting yes on this item because indeed I believe that no child should be marginalized. We all must have the right to see ourselves in the curriculum. And we all have the right to, whatever our orientation, to have role models. I remember back many years ago, some of you know that I am an inveterate stutterer. When I was told one day that Thomas Jefferson was also a stutterer, that was very important in my life. So too is it extraordinarily important to those kids when they see in our history books role models, people that they can identify with, and we have come into the 21st century, and this is our evolution in terms of social science. I have gone through 50 years in education and have seen the evolution in terms of those people of color. I've seen the change in the way women are treated in our textbooks. This is just another part of that evolution so that we do not marginalize people. It is, after all, how we treat each other. And this gives us another opportunity to see ourselves and to represent ourselves, because all of us matter. And thank you all for participating in the process.
Dr. McKibben, in your motion, I want to clarify before we take a vote. You are moving the textbook adoptions for TK History Social Science, 6-8 History Social Science, and High School World and United States History?
Exactly.
And Ms. Vasquez, was that your second? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. That was unanimous. We will be taking a 10-minute recess.